You're tracking the wrong number. You know your MRR, you know your growth rate, you might even know your runway. But there's one number that tells you more about your business than any other number, and most founders have never calculated it. This number tells you whether you have a scalable business or an expensive hobby. It tells you whether investors should be fighting to get into your round or running in the other direction. In this video, I'll show you what that number is, how to calculate it, and the two levers that move it to the next level. Hi, I'm Kishore Dasaka, and I run a fractional CFO firm for startups. I've seen founders raise millions without ever calculating this number, then wonder why their growth stalled. And here's what they missed. This number is a ratio. It's called the LTGP to CAC ratio, lifetime gross profit divided by customer acquisition cost. Let me break that down. Most founders know their LTV, lifetime value, how much revenue a customer generates over their lifetime. But here's where they get it wrong. LTV isn't revenue. LTV should be equal to gross profit. So if your customer pays you $10,000 over their lifetime, but it costs you $6,000 to deliver that service, then your LTGP is not $10,000, it is $4,000. Now that is the number that matters, because that $4,000 is what you have left to cover your acquisition costs, overheads, and profit. Now, the second half of the ratio, CAC, customer acquisition costs. Most founders undercount this. They think CAC is equal to ad spend. I spent $500 on ads, I got 5 customers, so CAC is $100. Wrong. CAC includes everything. Ad spend, yes, but also sales team salaries, marketing team salaries, software tools for sales and marketing, agency fees, and content production costs. Take your total sales marketing spend for a period, divide that by number of customers acquired. That is your CAC. For most startups, the real CAC is 2 to 3 times higher than what founders think it is. And here's why this ratio matters. If your LTGP is $4,000 and your CAC is $400, then your ratio is 10 to 1. For every dollar that you put into acquisition, you get $10 back as gross profit. Now that is a license to print money. You can pour fuel on that fire and it will keep burning. But if your LTGP is $4,000 and if your CAC is $2,000, then your ratio is 2 to 1. That is thin, that is fragile, and one bad quarter, you are underwater. Here's the benchmark that I use. If you're below 3 to 1, you have a unit economics problem. You need to fix it before you scale. If your ratio is anywhere between 3 to 1 to 5 to 1, that is solid. You can grow sustainably. If the ratio is between 5 and 10, you can grow strong. You can grow aggressively. And if your ratio is above 10 to 1, you're in an exceptional category. Scale it as fast as you can. The best businesses that I've worked with have had ratios above 10 to 1. And here's the thing, they can tell you that number instantly because they tracked it obsessively. Let me show you 3 mistakes that I see constantly. Mistake number 1, using revenue instead of gross profit. I had a client last year, $2 million in ARR, growing very fast. They thought they had great unit economics. Their LTV was $24,000 per customer. Their CAC was somewhere about $3,000. So they said, hey, we have an 8:1 ratio. But unfortunately, they didn't. Their gross margin was only 40%. So their LTGP was 9,600, not 24,000. Now the real ratio here is 3.2 to 1. Still okay, but not nearly as strong as what they thought. And it changed every strategic decision. Mistake number 2 is undercounting CAC. Another client, SaaS business, he said that his CAC is $200. I looked at the numbers, their ad spend was $20,000 a month. Their sales rep salary was $8,000 a month. Marketing coordinator, $5,000 a month. HubSpot and all these other tools, $2,000 a month. Content and design contractors, $3,000 a month. Now that is a total of $38,000 a month. Customers acquired, $40 a month. So the real CAC was $950, not $200. The ratio went down from an amazing category to a concerning category in one calculation. Mistake number 3, not segmenting your ratios. Your average LTGP to CAC ratio might look fine, but averages usually hide the truth. So what's the ratio for enterprise customers to SMB customers acquired through paid ads versus organic referrals? What's the ratio for customers who buy your premium tire versus your starter tire? Now I've seen businesses where the ratio was 4:1, but enterprise customers were 12 to 1 and SMB customers were 1.5:1. Now that changes everything. You stop trying to grow the SMB customers, which are actually bleeding, and you double down on enterprise customers. Segmentation reveals where your business is actually making money and where it is bleeding. Now, there are only 2 ways to improve this ratio. One, you improve your LTGP, or two, you decrease your CAC. Most founders obsess over CAC, cheaper ads, better funnels, and more efficient sales. Now that works, but unfortunately, it has a floor. CAC can only go down to a certain price point. In practice, it can only decrease that much. LTGP, on the other hand, technically can increase infinite. That is a bigger lever. So how do you increase your LTGP? One is obviously raising your prices. This is the fastest lever. If you can increase your prices by 20% and your volume stays the same, your LTGP goes up by 20%. Actually, it goes up by more than 20% because your COGS often stays flat. So the incremental revenue is pure margin. A $100 product with a $40 COGS is $60 in gross margin. But a $120 product with the same $40 COGS is $80 in gross profit. That is a 33% LTGP increase from a 20% price increase. Most startups are underpriced. They're afraid to raise their prices. They should be afraid not to. The second tool is to reduce your cost of delivery. What does it actually cost to serve a customer? Support costs, infrastructure, fulfillment. Every dollar you reduce here flows straight to your LTGP. One client of ours reduced their support cost by 30% by building better onboarding documentation and using AI. Same revenue, but higher gross margin. The ratio improved immediately. The third lever is increasing your purchase frequency. A customer who buys once a year is worth less than a customer who buys monthly, even if the annual spend is the same. The second customer has more touch points, more upsell opportunities, and a lower churn risk. So how do you get us to buy more often? Subscriptions, consumables, and expansion revenue. Add upsells and cross sells. Your existing customer are the cheapest sources of revenue. You've already paid to acquire them. Every additional dollar that they spend has zero customer acquisition cost. That is a pure LTGP improvement. And there's one more piece to this: payback period. How long does it take to recover your CAC? If your CAC is $1,000 and your monthly gross profit per customer is $200, your payback is 5 months. Why does this matter? Because payback period determines how fast you can grow. If your payback is 5 months, you need to fund 5 months of customer acquisition before you start making money on that customer. If your payback is 12 months, you need to fund for a full year. Shorter payback is faster scaling, and longer payback requires more capital. Two businesses can have the same LTGP to CAC ratio, but completely different growth constraint based on a CAC payback. A 10:1 ratio with a 3-month payback can grow much faster with a 10:1 ratio with a 12-month payback. When I evaluate unit economics, I look at both. The ratio tells me which one is more profitable. The payback tells me how fast it can stay.
Here's exactly how to calculate this for your business. Step number 1, calculate lifetime. For subscription businesses, lifetime is equal to 1 divided by monthly churn rate. If 5% of your customers cancel each month, then lifetime is 1 divided by 5%, which is equal to 20 months. For transactional businesses, look at your customer cohorts. How many purchases does an average customer make over a 2 or 3 year period? Step number 2 is calculating the gross profit per period. Revenue per customer per month minus the cost to serve that customer. Include direct costs only: hosting, support, fulfillment, direct labor. Don't include any overhead like sales or marketing here. That is what you're comparing against. Step number 3 is to calculate the LTGP. Lifetime multiplied by gross profit per period. So 20 months multiplied by $200 per month equal to $4,000 of LTGP. Step number 4 is to calculate the CAC. Total sales and marketing spend divided by the number of customers acquired during that period. Now here you have to include everything: salaries, ads, tools, agencies, and content. And the key is to be honest here. Undercounting CAC just lies to yourself. Step number 5 is to calculate the ratio: LTGP divided by CAC. So $4,000 divided by $400 is 10:1. That is your number. Step number 6 is to segment it. Calculate by customer type, by acquisition channel, by product tier. The segment tells you where you have to focus. Every business that I've seen scale past $10 million knew this number cold. Not approximately, not directionally, but precisely. They could tell you your LTGP to CAC ratio by segment, by channel, and by cohort. And they made every major decision based on improving it. More capital to the channel with the best ratios. Price increases where gross margin was 10. Churn reduction where lifetime was short. This one number connects your marketing, sales, products, and finance into one single metrics that tells you whether this business can scale or not. If you don't know this ratio right now, that is your homework. Calculate it, segment it, and then decide what to do about it.